Eu tenho que me concentrar muito, todos os dias.
Vinícius Jr was once Brazil's next big thing, until at just 17, the whole country turned on him. Despite signing for Real Madrid in a jaw-dropping €45 million deal, he spent 3 years being mocked as a flop. Then, against all odds, he rose to become the best footballer in the world. But with greatness came something unexpected. He became the most hated player in Spain. So how did it happen? How did a so-called €45 million mistake transform into a global superstar and a villain at the same time? This is the full story of Vinícius Jr. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to The Athletic Journal for more incredible football stories. We bring you the most shocking, inspiring, and unbelievable journeys in the world of sports. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Born on July 12, 2000, in São Gonçalo, Brazil, a struggling area in Rio de Janeiro, Vinícius found football early. His journey began in 2006, when his father took him to a Flamengo-affiliated academy. Originally scouted as a left-back, his speed and dribbling magic quickly pushed him further up the pitch. But life wasn't easy. His family was so poor that he had to move in with his uncle just to be closer to training. Everything changed when Flamengo handed him his first youth contract at age 10. The family finally received financial support, and Flamengo, one of Brazil's biggest clubs, became their ticket to a better life. As Vinícius dominated the youth ranks, their belief in his talent only grew stronger. By 16, he was already wearing the Brazilian jersey, starring in the U17 South American Championship. There, Vinícius ran circles around defenders, scoring 7 goals and leading Brazil to victory. It was, without question, the best moment of his international career, because things wouldn't go so smoothly for him in the national team later. But more on that soon. With the world watching, the biggest clubs circled. Barcelona, desperate to sign him, prepared to trigger his €30 million release clause, but Real Madrid had learned their lesson from losing Neymar and moved fast. They convinced Flamengo to increase Vinícius' buyout clause to €45 million, just to outbid Barca. And just like that, on August 10, 2017, Real Madrid landed Brazil's next superstar. But back home, nobody was celebrating. Vinícius had barely played 20 minutes of senior football when Madrid made their move, and to Brazilians, it looked like the biggest scam in football history. For a while, they had every reason to believe that. Vinícius was already struggling, but now, even his own teammates were starting to turn against him. The most humiliating moment came in a Champions League match when cameras caught Karim Benzema speaking to Ferland Mendy at halftime, telling him, "Don't pass to Vinícius, he's playing against us." The clip went viral, and suddenly, it felt like the entire world had written him off. Not just the fans, not just the media, but even his own teammates. If he wasn't good enough to earn their trust, how could he ever succeed at Real Madrid? At this point, it looked like Vinícius was on borrowed time. Madrid was already eyeing new attacking options, and many fans believed his days at the club were numbered. Every mistake he made was magnified. Every missed chance became proof that he was a failure. The expectations were crushing him, and worst of all, he was starting to believe the criticism himself. But just when it seemed like his career was spiraling out of control, something changed. The turning point. Instead of running from the pressure, Vinícius decided to face it head-on. During the offseason, he dedicated himself to improving his weaknesses, his finishing, his decision-making, his composure in front of goal. He worked closely with the coaching staff, fine-tuning his technique and sharpening his instincts. By the time the 2021-22 season began, something was different. This wasn't the same Vinícius who looked lost and unsure of himself. This was a player with confidence, with hunger, with a point to prove. In the first game of the season, he scored. Then he scored again and again. Suddenly, he was unstoppable. His link-up play with Benzema became one of the deadliest partnerships in world football. He was dribbling past defenders with ease, scoring goals with precision, and finally delivering the end product that everyone had been waiting for. By the time the season ended, Vinícius had put up 22 goals and 20 assists, by far his best numbers in a Real Madrid shirt. But his defining moment came on the biggest stage of all. The Champions League final. Real Madrid faced Liverpool in the 2022 Champions League final, and once again, all eyes were on Vinícius. But this time, he was ready for the moment. In the 59th minute, he made a perfectly timed run behind the defense, and when the ball fell to his feet, he made no mistake, slotting it past Alisson to score the winning goal. From flop to Champions League hero, from unwanted to unstoppable. That night, Vinícius Jr cemented his place among the elite. He had proven every critic wrong. But even with his rise to stardom, a new problem was emerging, one that had nothing to do with football. Because as much as Vinícius had become one of the best players in the world, he had also become one of the most hated. Why Spain turned on Vinícius? At first, it was the defenders. The more dangerous he became, the more aggressively they tried to stop him. Defenders would hack at his legs, shove him off the ball, and try to provoke him. But Vinícius refused to back down. Then, it was the opposition fans. They didn't just boo him, they took it further. Racist chants, monkey noises, hateful banners. Week after week, he was subjected to disgusting abuse in stadiums across Spain. And finally, even the media got involved. Pundits began calling him arrogant for celebrating his goals with dance moves. Some even suggested he was the one provoking defenders, instead of admitting he was being targeted. Vinícius wasn't just a footballer anymore. He was now at the center of one of the biggest controversies in modern football. So, how did this happen? Why is Vinícius Jr, despite his talent, the most hated player in Spain? And can he overcome this latest battle the same way he fought through the early years of his career? Stick around, because this story is far from over. At this point, Vinícius Jr had officially arrived. The so-called 45 million flop had just won La Liga and the Champions League, scoring the goal that made Real Madrid the kings of Europe once again. He had silenced the doubters, proven his worth, and gained the respect of his teammates. Even Benzema, who once refused to pass to him, was now his biggest supporter. But just as Vinícius had reached the top, a new battle was about to begin. Because with his rise to stardom, he also became the most targeted player in Spain, on and off the pitch. The most hated player in Spain. As Vinícius became one of the best wingers in the world, defenders stopped trying to outplay him and started trying to stop him by any means necessary. Week after week, he was hacked down by brutal tackles, pushed, shoved, and provoked. But the more they tried to break him, the more he fought back. And that's when things turned ugly. Opposition fans, already frustrated by his skill, his confidence, and his celebrations, began hurling racial abuse at him from the stands. Monkey chants, racist slurs, and even banners mocking him became a regular occurrence in La Liga. In some stadiums, entire sections of the crowd chanted against him. At first, Vinícius tried to ignore it. He focused on his football, responded with goals, and kept dancing in celebration. But it kept getting worse. Even when he spoke out against the abuse, the Spanish media turned on him, claiming that he was the problem, that he was provoking fans by simply expressing himself on the pitch. Things reached a boiling point in May 2023 during a match against Valencia, where a group of fans openly shouted racial slurs at him throughout the game. When he finally reacted, pointing out the fans who were abusing him, he was the one who got a red card. Yes, the victim got punished while the abusers walked free. A fighter, not a victim. But if La Liga expected Vinícius to back down, they were wrong. Instead, he doubled down on his fight against racism, calling out the league, the officials, and the clubs for allowing it to continue. He refused to be silenced, refused to stop playing his game, and refused to stop celebrating his goals. And despite everything, he just kept getting better. By the 2023-24 season, he was no longer just an exciting talent. He was Real Madrid's main man. With Benzema gone, it was now his team, his attack, his moment. Even as the hate continued, even as the tackles got dirtier, Vinícius Jr stood tall and kept proving why he's one of the best players in the world. So, from being laughed at in Brazil, mocked in Spain, and doubted by his own teammates, Vinícius Jr has done the impossible. He didn't just become a superstar, he became a symbol of resilience, defiance, and greatness. But the question is, can he keep rising above the hate? And can he one day become the greatest player in the world? Vinícius Jr was officially one of the best players in the world. After his incredible 2021-22 season, he was named the Champions League Young Player of the Season and earned a spot in both the La Liga and Champions League teams of the season. While Karim Benzema stole the headlines, winning the Ballon d'Or, it was clear that Vinícius had evolved into a world-class talent and was now one of the most feared wingers in football. But with his performances silencing the critics on the pitch, rival fans looked for something else to attack, and they turned to something far uglier: the color of his skin. Despite his undeniable talent, Vinícius became a frequent target of racist chants, abuse, and hostility from opposition fans. His flashy playing style, his love for showboating, and his passionate celebrations made him a lightning rod for hate. Some claimed he was provocative, some called him arrogant, but in reality, he was simply playing football the way he always had, with joy, confidence, and flair. Heading into the 2022-23 season, Vinícius wasn't just maintaining his form, he was getting even better. He finished the campaign with 23 goals and 21 assists, improving on his numbers from the previous season. However, despite his brilliance, Real Madrid fell short in La Liga, losing the title to Barcelona, and their Champions League run ended in the semi-finals at the hands of eventual winners, Manchester City. But Vinícius still delivered in the biggest moments. He put on a show against Liverpool in the round of 16 and scored a stunning goal in the Champions League semi-final first leg against City. And while Madrid couldn't repeat their European triumph, they did manage to lift the Copa del Rey, a trophy that had eluded them for nearly a decade. The season also included the 2022 World Cup, but Brazil, once again, failed to meet expectations. For Vinícius, it was another frustrating tournament as his country fell short on the biggest stage. But while Madrid's season was filled with ups and downs, one thing remained constant: Vinícius was the most targeted player in football. The most fouled player in Europe, week after week, Vinícius was getting hacked down by defenders who saw his trickery as disrespectful. Instead of trying to stop him with skill, opponents resorted to aggressive tackles, off-the-ball fouls, and blatant provocations. And the worst part, the referees did little to protect him. Game after game, Vinícius was kicked, tripped, shoved, and harassed, yet the officials rarely stepped in. The message was clear: he was on his own. But the biggest controversy of the season came in Real Madrid's penultimate game against Valencia. The boiling point: Valencia versus Real Madrid. By this point, Vinícius had endured racist abuse in multiple away stadiums, but nothing compared to what he faced in Valencia. From the moment he stepped onto the pitch, he was met with deafening racist chants. The abuse was relentless, echoing around the stadium. The situation was so bad that the referee had to pause the game. At one point, Vinícius walked over to the stands, pointing at specific fans who had been hurling racial slurs at him. But instead of stopping the game or punishing the offenders, the officials let it continue. Then, as tensions boiled over, a brawl broke out on the pitch. Amid the chaos, Vinícius was grabbed by the neck, shoved, and provoked. Frustrated, he pushed his opponent away. And what did the referee do? He gave Vinícius a red card. Yes, the player who had been racially abused, physically assaulted, and taunted all game was the one who got sent off. The aftermath: Vinícius versus La Liga. The decision sparked outrage. Vinícius took to social media, blasting La Liga for their failure to act. He called out the league's lack of protection for black players and demanded real change. And this time, the world listened. Support poured in from across football. Players, managers, and even politicians condemned the handling of the situation. The conversation wasn't just about Vinícius anymore. It was about racism in football as a whole. Faced with global pressure, La Liga was finally forced to respond. The red card was overturned, arrests were made, and investigations were launched. But the damage had already been done. Vinícius Jr wasn't just playing against defenders anymore. He was playing against an entire system. What's next for Vinícius? Despite everything he's been through, Vinícius Jr is still standing, still fighting, and still playing the game his way. And as he enters the prime of his career, one thing is certain: he's not going anywhere. But the question remains: can La Liga change? will football finally take a stand against racism? And can Vinícius Jr rise above it all to become the greatest player in the world? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to The Athletic Journal for more powerful football stories.